Hello, Danvers. I'm Isiah Young, an intern with the Danvers Department of Equity and Inclusion, and this week's host of the Let's Talk About Race recap series. This week, week 4, we talked about what you should do if you're called racist. This week, I'm joined by the wonderful Miss Ramon, who is the host of the Let's Talk About Race recap series, and most notably, the Director of Equity and Inclusion, my boss. So, what do you think? What advice do you give to someone who just got called racist?
Yeah, so I think that's a tough one. I feel like the first thing that I would probably say in that situation to someone is to try to work past your defensiveness, because I think it's so easy, not just if you're called racist, but in any situation where you're being called in or out, to have that visceral reaction. You might seize up, or you're like, oh no, or suddenly everything in your brain is telling you, say you're not, say you're not. But I think really the importance of the situation, if we're practicing allyship, when you get called out like that, is to take a moment to breathe, like acknowledge the feelings that might be coming up internally, and then ask a curious question, right? Say, oh, what makes you think that? Or I'm so sorry, that's what you think is happening here. And then from there, I think it opens up a doorway to conversation to figure out, what did you say? Because maybe it's not your intention, and hopefully your intentions become clear later on in the conversation. But if your first reaction is to shut down in that way and start saying, no, I'm not, and how dare you call me that, it's harder to redeem a conversation, when really the purpose is to make sure that you're coming to an understanding with whoever's called you that.
Yeah, speaking of allyship was a big part of our conversation this week. And so I wanted to just know what you thought about allyship and overall thoughts on like what it means to be an ally.
Absolutely. I mean, I think first and foremost that allyship, I say ally is not a noun, it's a verb. So I really try to avoid putting myself in a situation where I say, I'm your ally. In my head, I like to think I'm practicing allyship, and what that looks like is thinking about ways to elevate and support different communities that might be more marginalized or underrepresented, and really making that support be rooted in action rather than just statements. My hope would be that a community over time might consider me an ally, but that's not really the point, right? The point is to think about, how am I uplifting underrepresented experiences? How am I putting myself in uncomfortable situations to prevent discomfort from people, again, who are more marginalized, and thinking about how can I show up, and when are the moments to be loud versus when are the moments to just sit and listen. So it's a lot of kind of feeling it out, but making sure that you're in it for the right reasons, right? Like, how do you do the work when no one's watching, I think is the biggest thing. How do you have the difficult conversations with people in your lives, and not just when it's in front of other people, or in front of someone from that community. It's a lot, it's hard, but it's worth it, it's worth it.
Yeah. Overall, throughout the series, we've had a lot of people come. There's been a lot of turnout. And so I personally have gotten to meet a lot of people who I didn't know before, and because of that, I've gotten to better understand a lot about race and different perspectives from people. So I just wanted to know, like, how many new people have you met and been introduced to because of the race series?
That's such a good question. I think I've been in the community coming up on a year and a half, and because I oversee the town, the schools, and the library, I've kind of gotten used to seeing community members in these compartmentalized spaces. Mm-hmm. And what I really love about this series is that all of a sudden they're not compartmentalized. It's like everyone in the same room. So it's like a person from the schools, a colleague of mine in town hall, a person from the library. They're all in the same space. Residents, I definitely can think of a handful of residents that I would have never met if not for this series. And I really enjoyed not only seeing colleagues that I might not have been expecting to come to the conversation, but also seeing residents who are new to me, and really it's opened up the doorways to say, hey, like, if you like this series, here's 10 million other events and things that I have going on that I'd love to see you in, and please bring your friends. The other thing that's been cool is even community members who are not attending, who are not able to attend, have even been kind of emailing me directly to say, hey, like, thanks so much for doing the recaps. It's really been helpful to learn about things a little bit more, and I'm hoping to catch something else when my schedule allows. So I can't really put a number on just how many, but I've definitely had a lot of those moments where I'm like, oh, that's a familiar face. And again, even people who I've never seen outside of this series, I'm now really comfortable with because I've seen them every week. There's like a good handful of like probably around 5 to 6 people where that's the case, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I very much agree with you. Me personally, a lot of the people I didn't really know because they're all much older than me because I'm just a kid. But I got to meet a lot of people who were older than me, and I think that's really important for the intergenerational aspect of like racism because, as I've said before, it's very different between my generation and even yours. And your generation grew up somewhat on technology, so it's extremely different for someone of my generation to someone in their late 60s, 70s. And so I think it's really important for not only old people to be there, for young people to be there too. So Jasmine, where can they find us this week?
This Thursday, they can find us in the standing room on the first floor of the library, where we always are, from 5:15 to 6:45. And this week, we'll be discussing how to shift from talking about racism into more action and to thinking about what steps are going to follow after this series closes out.
Thank you so much for watching, Danvers.